Headlines at this hour. Senator Goldwater says he is ready, willing, and able to meet President Johnson in televised debates during the campaign. President Johnson has declined to commit himself yet on the question. The Ranger 7 spacecraft appears to be set on a collision course with the moon. About 1:30 tomorrow morning, scientists will try to send a signal altering its path so it will hit the intended landing area. The Senate has passed and sent to the House a bill to put quotas on imports of beef, veal, and mutton as requested by the livestock industry. The House Armed Services Committee has approved that 2.5% pay raise for military men, and Congress has sent to the White House a measure providing for the minting of 45 million more silver dollars. This was the 35th birthday of Mrs. John F. Kennedy, widow of the president. She spent it in New York City. Voice contact has been established with the leader of the 14 miners trapped 223 feet below the surface of a French mine. He said at least 8 others are alive. In the racial issue, the curfew has been lifted in Rochester, New York. Mayor Wagner met with Negro leader King about the problem in New York City, and for the first time in modern history, Negroes will serve on Georgia's delegation to the Democratic National Convention. Harry Reisner has more world news at 6:30. On the local scene, the Attorney General speaks, 2 rescues, and a fishing derby. State Attorney General Stanley Mosk this morning urged San Diegans to actively fight Proposition 14. That's the ballot measure which would nullify the Rumford Fair Housing Act. Speaking at a breakfast meeting at the U.S. Grant, Mosk said that Proposition 14 is a regressive measure which would perpetuate the right to bigotry. He said $200,000 must be raised in San Diego County to provide campaign funds against the proposition. Following the breakfast, Harold Keene interviewed Mosk, an interview you'll see shortly.
The 15-year-old San Diego girl can thank a quick-thinking city lifeguard for possibly saving her from drowning. Trudy Campbell of 3523 Brookshire apparently overtired herself while swimming in the ocean off South Pacific Beach. She managed to make it to shore, but fainted. Lifeguard Ken Priest went to get her a blanket. When he returned, he noticed the girl had stopped breathing. Priest quickly administered mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and revived the teenager. Trudy apparently recovered completely from her experience, and time and luck were on the side of 2-year-old Wayne Whittle this afternoon. The child, son of Wayne and Mrs. Whittle of Lomita Village, had accidentally crawled into a refrigerator near his home. Friends and neighbors started a widespread search for the lad, but he couldn't be found. Joe Perillo was visiting relatives nearby, decided he should check a refrigerator which was standing in the garage. That's where Perillo found the boy unconscious and in shock. Young Wayne quickly recovered and is in good condition.
The retrial of 19-year-old Joseph B. Morse today saw a parade of witnesses in its 5th day. The retrial is on the penalty phase of Morse's first-degree murder conviction for the slaying of his mother and invalid sister. Among the half-dozen witnesses appearing today were Morse's sister-in-law, Gail Morse, and her mother, Mrs. May Keating, to whom Morse first confessed the murders. The retrial is being held in Judge Abernathy's Superior Courtroom. A bicycle accident today at 4th and A Streets in downtown San Diego. A Pacific Messenger hit an object on A Street which caused him to fly over the handlebars of his bike. Alan Westover, 25, lay stunned on the street for some time before he was taken to Mercy Hospital and treated for a gash in his forehead. Westover was released from the hospital after treatment. He lives at 5532 Cambria Court in San Diego. U.S. Chamber of Commerce President Walter F. Carey today told a local audience that business, not government, has the main responsibility in the war against poverty. He spoke at a joint luncheon at the San Diego Chamber of Commerce and the Western Traffic Management Conference. He emphasized that free enterprise has to provide the jobs and resources which end poverty.
The Board of Education is just about the school budget to be held next Tuesday at the Education Center. Today, the superintendent recommended a budget which restored half the major cuts made a year ago and provided a 2-step salary increase for teachers to a maximum starting wage of $5,500 a year. This budget recommendation would mean an overall tax rate increase of 17.2 cents. The Teachers Association wants the starting salary to be upped immediately to the maximum. This would add another 12 cents to the superintendent's recommendation. The board must file its adopted budget by August 10th. The director of Scripps Institute of Oceanography, Dr. Roger Revelle, will leave shortly to take a post at Harvard University. spoke to downtown Kiwanis members today on the problems created by the high population rate. Revelle predicted by the year 2000, the Earth's population will more than double, and half the people will be Chinese. He also said the proportion of people will change so that only 1 in 5 will live in a developed country, and half the population will be children or adolescents. Revelle's answer to the population problem: give people a chance to be human beings, free to break through poverty, tradition, and environment. About 250 school-aged children today took part in the fishing derby at Lake Murray. The event was sponsored by the La Mesa Recreation Park Department, with the only charge being for bait and fishing gear. The kids were fishing for prizes such as trophies and ribbons, but they also were fishing for fish, naturally, and quite a few of them caught quite a lot. And apparently the girls were no exception as they pulled in their share of fish from the water. The line goes in and out, and this is what the girls came up with. What do you want, marlin? Well, when the contest was over, it was found that the biggest fish was about 5 inches long, caught by Cecil Bench of 7346 Vassar. That's Cease. He's 10 years old. The most fish, 10, was caught by Ricky Bertola, who's 10, of 6010 Manon Street.
The air search continues for 2 boys, 2 Los Angeles youths, missing in Baja, California. 6 planes, 3 of them from March Air Force Base, scanned the area today. The boys, Stephen Bunch, 17, and Harold Schlock, Jr., 18, were last seen the 4th of July after they had reached the village of Punta Prieta. They were driving a red pickup truck while collecting cactus plants for biological studies. Preparations were made today for the 10th annual Good Turn for Goodwill drive. Dr. Rex Gorton, president of City College, was re-elected chairman of the campaign, which will be held on October 31st. Dr. Gorton named committee chairman to handle various duties, and Robert Erb was elected vice chairman. 8,000 Boy Scouts will distribute 200,000 Goodwill bags on October 24th. The donated materials will be repaired by handicapped workers and sold. The Unified Port Commissioners this afternoon approved a lease with Anthony's Fish Grotto restaurant chain to become effective February 1st, 1965. Construction can begin on that date. Anthony's plans to build a $500,000 restaurant 140 feet out over the bay on the Embarcadero. It'll be located alongside the Star of India. Those middies that came to town last week are in the full throes of amphibious training these days. More than 440 of them are undergoing dry net training this afternoon at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado. This is part of the summer training cruise for the third-class midshipmen who come from 24 colleges and universities. It may not seem like part of a summer cruise to hit the dirt and pack a weapon, but the middies are preparing for an amphibious assault on Camp Pendleton on the 11th of August. A turbine-powered helicopter, the UH-1E, made its debut for Marine officials at Camp Pendleton. The aircraft, first of an unspecified number to be received over the next 12 months, will replace all helicopter and fixed-wing aircraft now in service with Marine Observation Squadron 6. The squadron official said the new helicopter requires no warm-up and can be airborne within 30 seconds. Once in the air, the craft is capable of speeds up to 120 knots. 20 minutes ago, Deputy Coroner Souza was dispatched to the Oceanside Community Hospital on an apparent drowning. Further details are not available at this time. We may have them for you on Newsroom at 11 tonight. Now standing by is Harold Keene. He has another commentary about an issue vital to San Diego.
Good evening. The new president of the United States Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Walter F. Carey of Birmingham, Michigan, is reputed to have a more liberal attitude than his predecessor in that post. Carey was in San Diego today to address a convention of defense traffic officers in El Cortez Hotel, and he dwelled on the subject of poverty. Carey, first of all, does not believe the government's anti-poverty campaign should be necessarily considered a political gimmick in an election year. Poverty does exist in America, he said, and because government and political leaders are engaged in a war against it at the start of a national election campaign is not to imply that their concern is faked, according to the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Carey pointed out that in 1929, 51% of U.S. families had incomes of $3,000 or less. By 1962, poverty had been reduced so drastically in this country that only 21% had incomes of $3,000 or less based on the 1962 dollar. But there is still that 21%, and Carey pointed out that although there are places in Asia, Africa, and Latin America where $3,000 a year is wealth beyond imagining, this is America, and trying to subsist on such a sum in America today is an outrage. He said he welcomes government assistance in the anti-poverty fight, but he expressed the traditional Chamber of Commerce belief that this is essentially a job for the free market business system. Businessmen and other private forms of enterprise are tackling the poverty problem effectively in many parts of the country. The government can help best, he says, by encouraging economic growth to provide more jobs for the expanding population through federal tax reduction and reform. There must also be curbs on excessive federal spending and reduction of the national debt. The nation, he says, needs a business climate based on a better understanding of the necessary role of profits. These are the conventional views of a Chamber of Commerce executive, but in addition, Walter Carey today demonstrated compassion and an understanding of the poverty problem that does him credit as the new chief of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
We're watching This Day, 1964, presented nightly at 5:45 on TV8, San Diego.
There aren't many American cities you can drive to these days without traveling on a freeway or a throughway. And any vacation traveler will tell you you can come a long way down that ribbon of concrete almost anywhere in California without having to stop. No traffic lights, no pedestrians usually, no busy intersections to slow you down, and as long as you get onto the right one in the first place, you can get where you're going faster. Now a part of San Diego's way of life, the Cabrillo Freeway, Highway 395 through Balboa Park, was the first major freeway in San Diego. It was opened for use in 1948 at a cost of $4 million for 7 miles. To date, 39 miles of full freeway have been constructed in the San Diego area. Another 7.5 miles are under construction. The newest convenience to motorists, the San Diego Freeway, is an example of what freeway travel means. For instance, during peak load hours from 8 to 5, average travel time from Washington Street in San Diego to E Street in Chula Vista has been shortened from 23.5 minutes to 12.5 minutes by taking the freeway rather than the old Harbor Drive route. Time saved, 11 minutes per trip. Obviously, freeway travel offers two main advantages: rapid vehicle movement from one area to another, and separation of through traffic from local traffic in the city. Statistics show they reduce accidents as well. But what of the disadvantages? By 1972, it's estimated, a total of 484 miles of freeway will be constructed and open to traffic in the Southern California area of San Diego, Imperial, and eastern Riverside counties. By then, families will have been routed, homes will have been torn down, roadside businesses will have died by the wayside. Many small businesses have wilted as traffic was taken off the former major streets and highways and put onto freeways from which people aren't as likely to slow down and stop for refreshment or even for gas until they absolutely have to. And what of families that were forced to relocate so that huge equipment could gouge out the earth and level it into a strip of concrete? There are even those who maintain that freeways only attract more traffic and create more congestion as vehicles pour onto city streets. But the experts argue that a healthy business will continue to exist without curbside traffic, and people will go out of their way for a good restaurant. They point out that families forced to move are compensated for their land, and that most people want the freeways, at least as long as they go through the other fellow's backyard. City traffic is relieved, the experts point out, when freeways keep cross-country travel out of the metropolitan area. America's cities, large and small, are caught up in the web of freeways. Construction proceeds, with cities hoping to disentangle themselves from the strangulation hold of traffic jams brought on by the auto age. Traffic problems are nothing new, by the way. Julius Caesar had the same difficulty with his chariots, so he established no parking areas in Rome, devised a system of one-way streets, and banned wheeled vehicles from the center of Rome during the day, which isn't a bad idea either. Next up, tonight's report on sports.
Lyle Bond, winner of the 1964 CAPTRA Award for the best regularly scheduled television sports program in California.
Good evening, everyone. The 25th summer season of thoroughbred racing was launched today at Del Mar, where the turf meets the surf. The usual big opening day crowd was on hand for the beginning of the 42-day meet, and as usual, big names were there too. Famous comedian Jimmy Durante and his wife. Columnist Walter Winchell. Actor, producer, millionaire Desi Arnaz. FBI Chief J. Edgar Hoover. Attorney General Stanley Mosk and his Attorney General, the Mrs. Abigail Van Buren. Dear Abby, Another screen favorite, Preston Foster. Mr. and Mrs. George Brent, he also cinema fame. KFMB executives, Mr. August Meyer, Mr. George Whitney with their wives, and Eastern visitor, Mr. Lloyd Griffin. And they're off in the first race, a 5.5 furlong jaunt for 2-year-olds. When you have money on them, it's a tense moment. And it's Rusty Gun, Alpha Babe fighting for the lead. Alpha Babe it is, the first winner of the 25th Del Mar racing season. Incidentally, one of the more important differences we learned on the farm between cows and horses is the proper direction of approach to them. Always milk a cow from the right side, always mount a horse from the left, and I don't know why. The Jockey Club, by the way, in its instructions for the registration of a horse, calls the right side the off side and the left side the near side. I wonder why not the on side. Oh, well. The San Diego Padres, who were unlucky in losing Perez and Ruiz to the Cincinnati Reds, ran into another nemesis in Spokane last night. The Indians beat him for the third time in 4 tries in their home campground, pared the Padres' top perch margin to 3 games. 4-3 was the score. Right-hander Jim Coates will oppose Spokane tonight. He'll be trying for his 10th victory of the season. Only one game in the majors this afternoon. The St. Louis Cardinals scored 5 times in the 10th inning to crush the Chicago Cubs 12-7. There were 33 hits during the slugging bee, in which 12 pitchers toiled. The 90-degree heat in Chicago during the game got to plate umpire Doug Harvey of our town today. Doug had to retire from his behind-the-plate duties, and third base umpire Lee Wire took over. And back to the Padres for a moment. The Cincinnati Reds have obtained infielder Larry Burright from the New York Mets. He'll be sent to the Padres from Rochester in the International League. There are still 50 footballers fighting for the 37 jobs that will be available with the San Diego Chargers when the regular professional American Football League season starts, and the battle will be carried right to the gridiron tomorrow when Coach Gilman and his aides will send the Atlases, the Apollos, and the Mercuries into a full-scale scrimmage. Some jobs will likely be won and lost in the afternoon on the Escondido training camp turf. That scrimmage will be closed to the public, but Saturday night at Helix High in La Mesa, the 1964 edition of the 1963 champions, will put on a pigskin show for the fans, preceded by an autograph session and also a clinic. That's Saturday night, Helix High, La Mesa. Washington State football coach Bert Clark says Baltimore Colts scouts will not be welcome at his school for an indefinite period. His statement follows a story in an Oakland newspaper saying that the Athletic Association of Western Universities had slapped an all-campus ban on the NFL Colts for recruiting code violations. The Chicago Bears, defending champions of the National Football League, have dedicated their 1964 season to their teammates Willie Gallimore and John Farrington, who were killed in an auto accident on Sunday night. Funeral services were held today. Appearing in the Navy Relief Boxing Show in the San Diego Coliseum on Thursday night will be 3 members of the United States Olympic boxing team, including Jim Rosette, 6-time All-Navy champion from the boxing team at Ream Field, and Bobby Valdez, 1964 All-Navy champ, also a member of the Ream Field team. Tickets are available at the Coliseum for the bouts Thursday night, 8:15. Randy Schwartz, former Helix High star, UCLA first baseman the past season, has been named Star of the Month of June by the Breitbart Athletic Foundation. Schwartz led the NCAA in homers and runs batted in, and he's selected to the All-America baseball team for the 2nd consecutive year, and he is only a junior. A 16-year-old boy has arrived in Anaheim after pedaling his bicycle across the nation from New Jersey. Harold Schenk made the 3,000-mile trip, 30 days at a cost of $100. His arrival in Anaheim comment, "I think I'm ready for a car now, Dad." Next, Dad with the weather, Doug Oliver.
And now the 2,570th broadcast of the Weather Word, featuring exclusive Animap projection of the nation's changing weather picture and the official San Diego forecast. Hi, everybody. Much the same weather in the west today. In a word, nice. By golly, this is, well, it's a thermal low up here, a heat low. And that situation of the moist air in the upper levels has continued. It's gone in our area for all intents and purposes, but there was some scattered light showers in the interior sections of central California and up into the Sierra Nevada range. In fact, Sacramento got some very light rain today, and scattered showers through the Rockies and down through the desert southwest. Otherwise, fair through the west, as you can see. 84 at Seattle today, Portland reporting 88, Helena 83, Sacramento with a high of 96, Santa Barbara 80 today, Salt Lake City 97, 91 at Denver, and Phoenix reporting 111. For the rest of the country, Some turbulent weather up around this low-pressure system here early this morning. Bismarck got some rain. Rain scattered through Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Minnesota area. And there was some hail at Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 3/4 of an inch in diameter, they tell us. And way up in the northwest corner, the town of Holton, Wisconsin, had a tornado. Just minor damage reported up there, however, and scattered showers through the lakes over into Pittsburgh, and scattered thunderstorms, which is usual for this time of the year, the summer, with the heat down through the Gulf area. Otherwise, not too much to report. Wichita with a high of 95. Of course, it's still hot back there all through the Midwest and much of the East. They have really been suffering. And here's one of our Keep Cool in the Summer pictures. They're really coming in now. This taken at St. Louis, some youngsters playing in front of the fire hydrant. That's the good old standby. And some of our friends back east are saying that from now on until August, for about 5 weeks, we are going into a period of what is known as dog days. I never heard of such arrogant blasphemy. And that's St. Bernard. And I don't know, I think he'd be hot all year round. But we don't have any such animal out here as dog days. So our eastern friends will just have to suffer back there. Never heard of dog days out here. For the rest of the highs now, Minneapolis, St. Paul, 89, 93 at Chicago, Kansas City, 93, 91 at St. Louis, 101 at Dallas, Fort Worth, 89 at Cleveland, Boston up to a 91 today, Washington, 92, and Miami Beach reporting 86. Still plenty hot through the country. Now I'll have San Diego County temperatures for you in just a moment. Now for county temperatures, Campo 100 degrees today, El Centro and Palm Springs reporting 115, Borrego 113, San Bernardino 102, Los Angeles up to an 86 today, Fallbrook 93, Carlsbad 77, Vista reporting 82, Escondido 90 with a low of 61, Ramona 100 degrees, Alpine 97, El Cajon 94 with a low of 63, La Mesa and Lemon Grove and Spring Valley, all with highs of 86 today. National City and Chula Vista with an 80, and downtown, the high was 80, the low this morning was 66 degrees. Current temperature downtown is 75 degrees, humidity is 64%, the pressure is 29.87, and the water at both Mission Beach and Imperial Beach was a nice, pleasant, old man swimming temperature of 70 degrees. Harold Keene is smiling. And the forecast is the usual, late night and early morning low clouds, coastal sections, otherwise generally sunny. There could be some variable high cloudiness over the mountain areas, but a really sunny day and nice and warm and pleasant with a high downtown of 79. And you know I'm getting close to my vacation. El Cajon with a high of 92, and that's the weather word. Next, Harold Keene with People in the News.
2-year-old Wayne Whittle is alive and in good condition because of the alertness of a refrigeration repairman who happened to be visiting in the 600 block of Sunnyside Avenue, Lomita Village, this afternoon. The child had accidentally locked himself in an empty refrigerator in a garage near his home. His rescuer, Joe Perillo, had left the neighborhood when we arrived, but his daughter, Mrs. Paula Millette, who was with him during the rescue, told about it.
Paula, when you and your dad learned that this little boy was missing, what did you do?
Well, we sat out back because all the neighbors were looking for him. We thought he was in one of the other houses or something. And then when my father went to leave, we came out front and we saw everyone looking for him. So we walked across the street to where the little boy was, and we didn't see anyone, and my father saw a refrigerator. And he walked over to the refrigerator and opened it, and the little boy was in it.
What was his condition? Could you describe that?
He was soaking wet, and he was very red. He looked like he wouldn't last too much longer if he had stayed in there.
Was he nearly unconscious?
I don't know how to explain it. It was such a shock that I don't know.
What did you do to revive him?
Well, my father picked him up and brought him over in the shade and got a blanket and laid him down. And they didn't give him any water in him. He was afraid he'd go into shock.
But just another minute or two, and it might have been a fatal case.
I don't think he could have stayed in much longer.
Just being brought out into the air revived him then?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The new president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Walter F. Carey of Birmingham, Michigan, made his first visit to San Diego today since he assumed his post. He expressed positive ideas about the nation's poverty problem.
Mr. Carey, there have been some allegations that the administration's anti-poverty program is a political gimmick. What are your views of that?
Well, we think the objectives, of course, are fine, and what we object to particularly is bypassing state governors and local officials and local people and trying, again, to control things from Washington. We think that the local communities could be given aid and help in planning their anti-poverty programs, but we think they can do a far more effective job. They're close to the people, they're close to the problems.
Do you think that most poor people have only themselves to blame for lack of intelligence or self-motivation?
No, I think they're victims of circumstances. Certainly in Appalachia, everyone knows that some of the natural resources have been depleted, and these people are there, and they're the victims of this depletion.
Is the war on poverty the sort of thing that government, whether federal, state, or local, is best equipped to handle?
Well, I think you find that government can be of help, but the local communities who are right there at the source can perhaps do a much better job.
Are businessmen using any local initiative to attack poverty?
Well, I should say, on this task force that we've set up, we've already come up with some findings. For instance, we find that you can't define poverty in general terms, that you have to be more specific. You have to realize that there are certain types of poverty, there are certain degrees of poverty. There are the old people who are perhaps too old, there are broken homes, there are the young folks who are unemployed, there are the rural people who have been in difficulties for one reason or another, and then there are the urban people. You have all these things, and until you understand the problem, it's rather difficult to write a broad blueprint and say this will do the job. And this is the way we're attacking it as business people. We're trying to define it and find the degrees of it and find the causes, and then we expect to come up with some suggestions for the public and for government that we think will be much more helpful than just let's appropriate some money.
How would you describe the business climate of the country today?
Well, I'd say it's excellent, and it's excellent for reasons that we all know. Business is good, and the tax reduction has been very helpful in this business climate, and we can't see any clouds except perhaps this automobile labor settlement. If it doesn't go properly, if it could be upsetting.
Is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce advocating any major change in policies affecting business in this country?
Well, of course, our policies are made by our members, and as they come up, then they will be in the picture. And of course, they come up from our members and from our different committees. And at this moment, of course, we're starting a new chamber year, so these things will yet come.
Do you personally think that there should be any drastic changes in government policies?
Well, one of the things that rather bothers businessmen is some overlapping in regulatory agencies, and the fact that some regulatory agencies do their job up to a point, and then the antitrust division comes along and upsets them. And to businessmen, not being able to depend on what rules they really have to live under, it's not as easy to operate.
That was Walter F. Carey, the new president of the United States Chamber of Commerce. State Attorney General Stanley Mosk was in San Diego today to rally opposition to Proposition 14, the initiative aimed at repealing the Rumford Housing Act and other future similar legislation. Mr. Mosk, State Senator Jack Schrotti of San Diego claims that you're trying to interfere with the right of the people to vote on Proposition 14 by attempting to declare it unconstitutional.
No, I'm expressing my opinion as a lawyer and as a citizen on a very vital issue affecting the people of California. I think I have no more and no less a right to express my views on this important question than do other citizens, including the senator.
Do you believe it to be unconstitutional?
We expressed that position on behalf of the State Board of Education before the Supreme Court, and while it denied the petition, the court did indicate it had grave doubts as to the constitutionality of the measure and would resolve those doubts in the event the measure were passed favorably in November.
Do you foresee, then, considerable litigation if the measure does pass?
Yes, I do. I think this matter will be in courts for a good long time if the people unwisely see fit to pass this initiative.
Now, if it does go into the courts, does the Rumford Act remain in effect until the matter of constitutionality is resolved?
Well, it would depend upon the manner in which it arises. It's hard to forecast that now.
What do you think would be the effect if Proposition 14 passes as far as the civil rights movement and fair housing is concerned?
Well, I tell you, Harold, what I'm fearful of is that if we wipe out the legal means that people will have to redress their grievances in the field of housing and the field of civil rights generally, that they may turn to the streets and use unlawful means, such as they're doing in some of the eastern states now. So it seems to me very unwise for us to wipe off our statute books the methods which the law and the legislature have devised to provide an opportunity for people to legally and peacefully solve their problems.
Are any out-of-state forces coming into California on both sides in this battle?
No, I'm aware of only on one side that the real estate associations in parts of the East are sending funds out here to support the initiative measure. I'm not aware of any funds coming to support the opponents who are seeking to defeat the measure.
Recently, there were news reports that Governor Brown plans to appoint you to the state Supreme Court. Is there any basis of factuality in these reports?
Well, Harold, those reports have popped up frequently over the past 5 years, ever since I've been Attorney General, and I don't know any more about them now than I did over the past 5 years.
Would you accept or look with pleasure on such an appointment?
Well, I have tremendous respect for the Supreme Court of California. I think it's the greatest court in the United States, barring none. And it would certainly be a great honor to serve on that court. But I have no information about any impending retirements or resignations or appointments being offered.
Getting back to Proposition 14, do you think it will be tied in somewhat in the public mind with the presidential campaign?
No, I don't think it should be. It may be, but there are Republicans and Democrats both opposing Proposition 14. The three major religious faiths, Christian, the Protestants and Catholics and Jewish faiths, are all opposed to Proposition 14. So I don't see that it has any partisan aspect at all.
Well, thank you, Attorney General Stanley Mosk, for your views on Proposition 14. Thanks for visiting with us here today.
Harold Keene and Bob Regan told you earlier on this day 1964 about the rescue of a youngster. Now here is flash process film just out of the laboratory. It shows the boy as he frolicked in his yard after the near tragedy while his happy mother watched. 2-year-old Wayne Whittle had wandered away from home and crawled into a refrigerator being moved into a house nearby. Friends and neighbors started a search for Wayne but found no signs of him. It was then that refrigerator repairman Joe Perillo, visiting relatives, decided to take a look into the refrigerator standing in a garage. Perillo found the boy inside, unconscious, and revived him. A Superior Court jury will be advised tomorrow to acquit 2 women defendants of mayhem and assault charges in the attack on Oceanside patrolman Albert Gilman. Judge William Mahidi announced this afternoon he would ask the panel to acquit 22-year-old Bernice Shores and 21-year-old Sherry Greenwade. Yesterday, Mahidi asked the jury to acquit them of an attempted murder charge. The judge said that on a 4th accusation, car theft, the women apparently are as guilty as the 3 men co-defendants. Mahidi made his announcement after the defense had arrested its case and while the jury was excused. Final arguments are expected to begin tomorrow. The defendants say they're black Muslims and they're accused of using a meat cleaver on Officer Gilman, who had stopped their automobile for investigation. Gilman was near death for a time. That's the news of San Diego on this day, 1964. Next, Harry Reasoner, substituting for Walter Cronkite on the CBS News of the World.